Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. Liverpool vanquished Brighton in part one of their face-off, don't they? It's the Carabao Cup, though. We'd like 3 points, but we'll take a quarter final against Southampton away. Here to talk about that one, the return leg, you could argue, this weekend, and everything Liverpool related, even with a little smattering of transfer related business, is Ben Boksak. Ben, how are we?
Very well. Obviously, I did the sort of Bocak brief after the game, so hopefully I can bring sort of more nuanced things to the table than in that short brief conversation. But as people heard, if you listen to that sort of 10-minute, just myself alone, it was mostly just talking about the main sort of points from the game, and it was a sort of, I would say, encouraging performance from Liverpool on the whole. But obviously, because of the much changed lineup, there were a few things that could have been better, could have been more comfortable. But we'll get onto that and we'll discuss it. And obviously, there were things that I think Liverpool will need to keep an eye on now in that second leg, as you put it, in the much more important, we should say, Premier League game.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Almost Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones, almost a double false nine last night. Well rotated, but a 3-2 victory nonetheless, and through a no extra time and no injuries, as far as we're aware, which is the most important thing. But wanted to get into it straight away, Ben. I mean, performance-wise, and you've got to give it the context of 8 changes, new lineup, new system, largely as well. What were your honest thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I think I knew it was going to be a sort of interesting, shall we say, team when I heard sort of before kickoff that Szoboszlai was going to play the false nine role. I got that info ahead of time. Obviously, I posted it because I think everyone was saying, "Oh, he's going to be the right winger." Then the lineups came out, but I had that information, and I knew based off of that it was going to be kind of interesting because we haven't seen him play there. I wasn't aware that they were going to sort of interchange with Jones, but obviously we saw that a little bit. I think Szoboszlai was tended to be the one who sort of stayed in the false number 9 role more than Jones, but it was quite interesting. Obviously, we knew Jaros would start as well, and I was rooting for him. He's someone who I've spoken to in the past, so yeah, I think I knew it was going to be a rusty game because of the changes, but I was kind of also looking forward to seeing these fringe players make their moments count. You know, we've had Morton and I think Endo and Kwanzaa, obviously, and Gomez. And yes, Kwanzaa made a few errors, but I think on the whole, all these fringe players sort of stepped up and showed moments of quality. That we can argue there were definitely players who did better than others, shall we say. I definitely think Morton will be the highlight, I think, among the fringe players. But overall, I think you can't really complain when you make 8 changes and you still beat a Premier League opponent. By the way, Brighton had a pretty strong side out, not their strongest side, but it was quite a strong side. So overall, I think, yeah, you can't really have any complaints.
Yeah, considering how many first teamers or starters you could say were missing for us, Brighton, who are doing, they're going great guns in the table. They are 6 people in case anyone's missed. They've had a great start. They have got about 8,000 attackers at the same time as well. So, yeah, there's a lot to like there. There really was. And speaking of things to like, there's one person we need to talk about and his stats, Ben. 2 absolute blammers from Cody Gakpo. Absolutely sensational strikes. Man of the match officially, man of the match for everyone as well. What were Gakpo's stats like in this one?
Impressive. Obviously, he scored the 2 goals, but he was involved in the creativity as well. Created 2 chances, which was the joint most in the game for Liverpool. There are quite a few players who created 2 chances. Connor Bradley as well, Tyler Morton. So, it was nice and encouraging to see chances coming from a midfielder, a right back, and a left winger as well. So they were coming from all sorts of positions and areas rather than relying on one person in particular. And I think that's been the big sort of change under Arne Slot's style. Liverpool aren't reliant necessarily on that right hand side creating everything. Uh,
Yeah.
Chances are coming from all over the place, and yeah, Gakpo was one of them. Probably should have got an assist. Let's be honest. I think Dominic Szoboszlai took a really bad touch when he squared it across to him. I mean, I think you could argue that he could have probably passed it a little bit earlier. The timing wasn't quite right. I think sort of made up for that with his brilliant finish. I think just a few minutes after, but yeah, overall really encouraging. And as I put out on the Anfield Index Twitter account, he now has 8 goals in 8 League Cup matches for Liverpool, 4 goals in 2 matches this season. Yeah, he seems to be Mr. League Cup, really. Very, very, very sort of influential when he's playing.
Could Cody Gakpo be this year's Taki Minamino, the League Cup, the Carabao man? We will have to see. It will be interesting. And you mentioned this player before, and we didn't even know if he was going to start particularly. We thought Kelleher might get the nod, but it is important to call out Jaros, isn't he? I mean, Ben, there was one save that was absolutely unreal, isn't it? A Dingra's header where he's going the wrong way. But just, it almost seems harsh because there's a couple of goals, in Liverpool's net. But Jaros was really good last night.
Yeah, I mean, my God, that save, that was incredible. Like, wow, just if that was Alisson, we'd be seeing highlights of that all over social media today. If that was in a Premier League game and it was Alisson or even Kelleher. So yeah, credit to him. He obviously made 5 saves in this game, 7 recoveries, 3 diving saves, 4 saves from inside the box, and like you mentioned, couldn't really do anything with either of the goals. I mean, really unfortunate deflection for the second one. The first one was just a good finish. I'm not sure what he could have done in those situations, but the situations where he was called upon and he had to do his job, he did his job, and I think based on that, you can't really have anything against him despite conceding 2 goals on his first ever start for Liverpool as well. Um, that save alone just says it all. How talented he is. I think his distribution was really good. Let's face it, Brighton are a side who press really high, and they pressed Liverpool really high. So if he was ever going to be tested in a game, it was going to be this game. But he stood up to the task. Obviously went long a few times, but Brighton sort of forced him to do that really. And in general, I think everything was really good and really encouraging. And yeah, I'm just really excited by the amount of quality goalkeepers Liverpool have at their disposal. Obviously, Alisson, one of the best in the world. Kelleher, probably as Klopp said, the best goalkeeper, best second choice goalkeeper in the world. I would say Jaros is now sort of starting to get there as the best third goalkeeper in the world. Maybe after that performance, we've got Mamardashvili coming potentially next summer, and obviously he was nominated to among some of the best goalkeepers in the world. I think he finished 7th in the Lev Yashin Awards, so yeah, he's up there too. And I have to give a shout out to Cornel Mistral, who was with the Liverpool travelling
Yeah.
squad for the first time, and he is a really talented goalkeeper as well. Another Eastern European as well, although I think he's eligible to play for England because he grew up in England. But yeah, he's got Polish roots, and I think yeah, this sort of talent at Liverpool's disposal. I remember the years when we were struggling to find one good goalkeeper and had to rely on the likes of Simon Mignolet, and remember when Brad Jones had a stint in goal for Liverpool for a long while. So now to have this many to choose from and this many to be relied upon is, I think, really good. And it's a testament to John Achtenberg's work as well. Obviously he's left the club now, but this is what his sort of legacy is.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy how good the panel is. I'm not sure we can bring best third choice goalkeeper into stat me up type of thing, but we can give it a go anyway. That was a definite positive. Let's move on to a kind of hot topic here, Ben, and it's important to have this discussion. I think that Robbo's performance, especially, has come under scrutiny the last few games, and there's obvious reasons for that in terms of the draw at the Emirates against Arsenal and this one last night. I don't think he's going to file either in his highlight reel. What do the stats say about Robbo's performance last night?
I mean, I was really concerned about him sort of against Arsenal. Obviously, Slot took him off. He got the armband this time around. Defensively, he made the most clearances in the game, the joint most clearances. Only one tackle attempted, but he did win that tackle. So they're not necessarily anything wrong. It's the other stats that I think stand out for me. 4 times dribbled past, 7 duels, just one out of those 7 duels, so 6 duels lost. Yeah, that really for me says it all. And his distribution as well wasn't anything extraordinary either. I mean, he completed 59 passes from 67 attempted passes. It's not the worst, but again, not necessarily the best. I think when you get in around 88%, there's always room for improvement. 90% pass completion is when we're talking about really good and exceptional players. I mean, obviously the way Robertson plays, he's a left back, so he's going to be making riskier passes, more penetrative passes. So 80% is the worst, but it's the other stats. I mean, he was coming up against Brian Gruder and Simon Adingra, who are two players really known for being good 1-versus-1. So the fact that he was dribbled past 4 times wouldn't necessarily be a concern for me if it wasn't more of a pattern and not just this game in isolation, but it is becoming a bit of a pattern. He's not winning a lot of duels either. And I think we get into the stage where we have to sort of consider whether Liverpool need a new long-term left back, really.
Yeah, I think most people are starting to wonder that. It'd be interesting to see if it does. Probably not, you never know, but if it does figure in the January decisions for the club at all, we'll have to see. But yeah, been a great servant, but there are a few question marks. I think many are expecting Tsimikas to start for the weekend. And I know this is the one, isn't it? The return leg, as we're calling it. However, it's not a second leg, people, as we know. Saturday, 3 p.m, Ben. We don't have too many of these, in all honesty. My gut's telling me the history of Brighton at home equals goals. I've been to sort of the last 3 or 4, but my memory isn't always great on this. But I've got a feeling I should be saying goals. Does the history back that up?
I wasn't really looking at the scores, but there has been a few 2-2 draws. So I wasn't looking at the goal scored necessarily, but when I was looking at the overall results, the stats aren't super great for Liverpool in the last 5 anyway at Anfield. Just one victory in that time. The last 4 games against Brighton, 1 victory, 2 draws, and 1 defeat for Liverpool. So those are not necessarily great numbers, but we have seen Brighton be our sort of bogey team, so to speak. They've been the thorn in our side. And if we're looking at our record overall, not just at Anfield against Brighton, but in the last 10 games, including yesterday's result as well, Liverpool have won just 3 games with that victory as well. There's been 3 defeats, so they've lost as many as they've won, and 4 draws. The draws seem to be the more common phenomenon in these games. So I think definitely Brighton will pose a danger and a threat to Liverpool, and they are obviously under a new manager. They started the season decent. I don't think they had their strongest 11 out, even though it was a strong 11. We saw Karuma Mitoma come on, and I think he completely changed the game when he came on, really. Bradley otherwise had a pretty good game up until that point, and then Mitoma came on, and Mitoma was sort of beating him in those duels and those one-on-one situations. I mean, he is one of the best in the league at doing that, and he's going to be a huge threat because I expect him to start in the next game. Obviously, Liverpool have their own big guns coming on and have a big point to prove as well, and then Mohamed Salah and those kind of players are not going to make it easy either for Brighton. But yeah, it's definitely one to watch, I think. That sort of Trent versus Mitoma, because we've seen Mitoma get the better of Trent a few times. But Trent's defending has really improved this season. So this will be, I think, even though we faced Arsenal, Man United and AC Milan, this could be sort of his biggest test yet.
Yeah, it will be. It's not going to be easy. Mitoma is a class player and he is electric when he gets going at the same time. And even think Brighton, I mean, Welbeck's, I think, got 6 goals. They have got an absolute raft of attackers, haven't they? Even the likes of Ruta didn't even play the other night. But yeah, I was thinking then, as you were talking about it, the history. I remember when we were 2-0 up against Brighton and they came back twice to get that 2-2 draw. I remember when Trossard got the hat trick as well in the 3-3 draw. So there are usually goals in this. And we are talking about the likes of Mitoma against Trent. Brighton's attacking threats are attacking threats. I don't think anyone will be putting any money on a 0-0 in this weekend. We will have to see what happens. Final part of the show, Ben. We've talked about different positions, different rumours, and we ain't a million miles away off January. I mean, it'll be November tomorrow, so a couple of months till this window. It may be too soon for this window, but one we do want to talk about. You've seen in the last few weeks, there's been quite a few links to different attackers. Gyökeres at Sporting, Marmoush at Eintracht Frankfurt. They're the 2 big names that have been linked recently. If you look at our forward line as well, everyone knows what's going on with Mo Salah. Everyone's hoping for good news about Mo Salah, but everyone knows where we stand currently. Diaz and Jota, 2 years on their contract left to go in the summer, which we know 2 years is usually the point. And Michael Edwards' sweet spot, you either renew or you move on. So there's question marks there. Speaking of question marks, there's a lot still over Darwin Núñez, isn't there? And there's not really that much to talk about with Chiesa at the moment either, except injuries and different bits there. So it wouldn't be a massive surprise for people, I think, if there were developments, let's put it that way, in the forward line, be it maybe not January, possibly, but in the summer, definitely. So just a couple that we want to explore. Gyökeres is a big name in Europe right now. He is banging them in for Sporting Lisbon. So on the surface, this was a link by Florian Plettenberg, age nearly 27. Any other stats that we could build a case for Gyökeres being a Liverpool target, shall we say?
Yeah, I think his goal conversion over the last couple of years has been really good. So when we're talking about Liverpool strikers, their goal conversion has kind of gone downhill over the last few years. Even Salah is around 15% last season. Considering that is Mohamed Salah, who takes a lot of penalties, that is relatively low for him. But he does also take on a lot of shots. Liverpool's best for that metric is Diogo Jota with 25.6%. Now, if we're looking at Gyökeres this season, he's above 30% for goal conversion for Sporting in the league. Last season, he was just over 28% in the league. And I know people are going to be like, hang on a minute, Darwin Núñez, he comes from that division. What was his goal conversion like? Yeah. It wasn't as consistent. I will add that. He did have 31% in his final season at Benfica. But the season before that, his goal conversion rate was 10%. So the difference here with consistent consistency. Gyökeres is doing this one season after another, and even if you're looking at his Coventry stats, they are above 20%, whereas Darwin, that season was a complete outlier for him in terms of goal conversion. And what we have seen with Liverpool is he's gone back to the sort of 10% that he was doing before that one freak anomaly season with Benfica. Gyökeres, on the other hand, he's got a longer sample size and a longer track record of being able to keep up those numbers. On the other sort of, I think, interesting facet about this is there's a bit of similarity between Marmoush and Gyökeres. It's that they take on a lot of dribble attempts, and when you're looking at Gyökeres, you don't necessarily think of that, but you see a big, tall striker, you probably think someone like Erling Haaland. But actually, if you watch his games, he's someone who drops back, gets himself involved in the build-up play. He likes to drift to the left, likes to drift to the right. Actually attempts 7 dribbles per game in his last 2 seasons, or there around, which would make him he would be attempting more dribbles than Luis Diaz has this season if he did that at Liverpool. So I think that I wanted to sort of mention that because I think that gets overlooked when it comes to Gyökeres. He gets profiled as a sort of big target man, but actually he's really good at sort of using his body to beat opponents and make those dribble attempts from deep, which I think maybe Harry Kane used to do in his prime. And if I could compare to someone, I'd probably compare him to Harry Kane. I've spoken to a lot of people about him who sort of coached and worked with him over the course of the summer, really, because he was linked with a fair few clubs. So I did a few feature pieces for him for World Soccer, and I've interviewed a lot of people, and some of the sort of character stuff is really encouraging too. So from a young age, since when he was a teenager, really, he used to get personal trainers in and everything. And when he was at one of Sweden's best academies, but he wasn't really the best player there. That's what his academy coach used to tell me. However, from 14, 15, he decided, I'm going to take this seriously. And his dad had a sort of footballing background, so they brought and employed a lot of people to work on his physique and every aspect of the game. And I think one of the other sort of nice anecdotes I heard about him is he just hates losing. He hated losing when it came to pretty much everything, even when he was playing tennis with his girlfriend. I think one time, because it's his ex-girlfriend now. She used to be a sort of footballer as well. I think she actually played for Brighton too, and they used to play tennis together in their downtime. And I think one time she beat him, and Gyökeres absolutely smashed his racket. He was so pissed off that he lost. So he is a massive, wanting to win. He's got that desire, that mentality, and I think when it comes to a sporting aspect, those are the kind of players that you want, who will give it their all to make sure you win every game. So both in terms of the stats, having watched him a lot, and the sort of character profiles, the backgrounds that I get from him, the information I get from him, I think, he would be a really, really good signing for Liverpool.
Interesting. It will be one to keep an eye on this summer. It's a hot link. We see Marmoush, Gyökeres now as well. We'll see what develops. Ladies and gents, we are pretty much there at the end of our Stat Me Up. So all it leaves me to say as ever is, Ben, for the time, for the insight, and most importantly for the stats, it's much appreciated.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
And ladies and gents, that was another Stat Me Up for Anfield Index.